Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Asps. Very dangerous. You go first.
Dun da dun 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 dun. What could that possibly be a reference to?
Star Wars.
Back in December, we covered George Lucas's most famous creation, which is, of course, Star Wars.
Oh, well, I wasn't there for that.
You were.
I mean, I was drunk, so I don't know if that counts.
But welcome back to the podcast, JD.
Yeah.
You were absent.
You recorded a podcast without me, you bitch. Friendship over.
Guess I'll just have to go solo on all of these from now on. It'll just be the Banger Show.
What would the porn parody name of ours be?
I think Bangers in Mash.
Bangers and Ass.
Bangers. It's May, which is traditionally the start of summer movie season. What's a good series of summer movie blockbusters?
X-Men.
You just gotta be difficult. You know...
Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god, we're talking about Indiana Jones today. We're talking about the world's most famous archaeologist. There are 4 of these movies, and I really like 2 of them.
That's fair.
What your opinions on the latter half of the franchise are varies.
I don't think there's really a bad movie in the whole franchise.
I would...
A bad movie. I mean, they're all entertaining.
Okay, I agree. None of them are outright terrible, though even some people would disagree with that. We should get started and swing into that perilous, ominous temple there or something.
Better dodge those boulders.
We've been around so long that we belong in a museum.
Let's record the podcast.
Okay.
For nearly 3,000 years, man has searched for the Lost Ark of the Covenant.
Jones, do you realize what the Ark is? It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to God.
An army which carries the Ark before it is invincible.
It is protected by forces beyond imagination. It is desired above all treasures on earth by those who are good,
Trust me.
and those who are evil. Raiders of the Lost Ark. A film from Steven Spielberg and George Lucas.
Did you know, JD? Indiana Jones, his name was originally Indiana Smith?
No.
Steven Spielberg and George Lucas were both vacationing in Hawaii and happened to run into each other. Steven Spielberg mentioned how he wanted to make a James Bond movie. And George Lucas said, hey, I've got this character that's even better than James Bond. Pitch him Indiana Smith. Steven said, I like it, but I don't really like the name. Can we change the name? How about Indiana Jones? Great. The character of Indiana was heavily inspired by the movie Secret of the Incas with Charlton Heston. If you look at Charlton Heston in that movie and you look at Harrison Ford, they have almost identical costumes.
Okay.
And do you know who was originally going to play Indiana Jones?
Who?
Tom Selleck.
I think I'd rather have Harrison Ford.
George Lucas didn't want to make another movie with Harrison Ford so soon after Star Wars. Apparently, Tom Selleck gave a great audition, but he couldn't do it because he was committed to Magnum P.I. So they went and got Harrison instead. You know, movie history was made. The first movie came out in 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark. Or, as they later re-released it, Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. I hate that they did that.
Yeah, I think it should just be Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, I mean, the sequels being Indiana Jones and the blank of whatever is fine, but that first one, you can't change the title. Anyway, hey, this first movie's pretty good.
Yeah.
And if we're talking George Lucas creations, I've always really preferred Indy to Star Wars. I know you're a big Star Wars guy. I really like Indiana Jones as a hero. I think he's awesome. I love the sense of adventure. Enjoy the way that the series sort of takes place in our world. The first 3 movies are set in the World War II era.
Yeah.
What's Raiders of the Lost Ark about, man?
The Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, that's the MacGuffin. 1936, the U.S. Army intelligence now believes that the Nazis are close to discovering the Ark of the Covenant
Yeah.
and the government drafts one man to retrieve the Ark. College professor and archaeologist Indiana Jones. Star Wars, which was George Lucas's extended homage to sci-fi serials. Indiana Jones is giving the same treatment to adventure serials of the same time. They're the movies the adventure serials promised on their posters but couldn't actually live up to. Mm-hmm. That's really illustrated in the opening sequence to Raiders of the Lost Ark, which has got to be one of the best opening scenes in cinema history, right? At least the most famous, anyway.
Yeah.
Rewatching it most recently, I noticed Indy doesn't actually walk on screen for a couple of minutes. He's in the shadows for a while. Weird, misty jungle set. And then we go through the temple sequence with the arrows in the walls, Pit of Doom, and of course the boulder, which has been parodied and referenced so many times.
I remember seeing one time in particular, and I think it might have been Muppet Babies, where they had all three of the escape sequences together.
Oh, yeah.
From the first three movies.
Well, yeah, that fucking shot with the boulder rolling is in the opening credits of Muppet Babies, isn't it?
Yeah.
Damn, I should have watched the Indiana Jones episode of Muppet Babies for this podcast. Totally dropped the giant boulder there. And it's a great moment because it does introduce Indy's character. A really smart guy. He can usually figure stuff out. But when shit goes wrong, he just has to roll with the punches and hope he can make it out alive. Somebody asks him what his plan is, and he says, I don't know, I'm making it up as I go along. It seems like he's maybe a little more comfortable in the classroom, where all his female students want to fuck him.
Yeah.
I guess that's the kind of shit that happens to you all the time when you look like Harrison Ford did back in 1981. And what do you think of that phobia of snakes?
I like it.
Makes him a little more human.
Adventurer.
Yeah.
That doesn't fear anything.
Yeah,
We've seen that 100 times.
Yeah, that makes him different from Bond. He's not so much hyper-confident as he is extraordinarily lucky.
And flying by the seat of his pants.
Yeah. Harrison Ford, obviously, is great in the role. His charisma and charm so easily. The Ark of the Covenant, though part of Christian theology, is also part of Hebrew theology. It's being seeked by the Nazis. And something else to remember is Steven Spielberg is Jewish. That gives that ending a new context, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The Hebrew god striking down the Nazis. Ark causes the Nazi symbol to burn off of the crate.
Yeah.
What do you think of Indiana Jones' love interest? He has a different love interest in most of these movies, which is sort of a Bond element. In this first one, it's Marion Ravenwood, who is the daughter of an old friend of Indy.
She said, I still think my favorite is the one from 2.
The best of Indy's female companions is Marion, played by Karen Allen. Not really a damsel in distress. She gets kidnapped by the Nazis in the middle of the movie, but she's tough. In that fight scene in the Himalayan bar, she's throwing punches and stuff.
Don't get me wrong, I love her.
She can drink the men under the table, too.
Yeah.
Her and Indy have great romantic chemistry. They just escaped the Nazis. The shit's been beaten out of him. They're on the boat together. She asks, where don't you hurt? Well, this spot right here doesn't hurt. She kisses each spot and looks like they're gonna fuck, but then he falls asleep.
You rated her Lost Ark.
Uh-oh. What do you think of some of Indy's other companions, like John Rhys Davies as Sala?
I like John Rhys Davies.
Love-
I can't look at him anymore, though, and not see Gimli.
He goes into adventures with Indy, but he's a little more cautious. And there's that great moment, the little traitorous monkey, the poisoned date. They just figured out where the temple is. And Indy's about to eat one of these dates when Sala pulls out a hand and grabs the date and says, bad dates. He just saw that the monkey has died from being poisoned.
We always kill the dog.
Well, it's okay. That monkey was a Nazi anyway. Anti-Semitic monkey.
It wasn't the monkey's fault. He was just doing what he was trained.
Denholm Elliott's character of Marcus Brody, who stays back in the museum, hangs out back there. He's cool too. If there's anything you can criticize Raiders of the Lost Ark for, which is a great movie and I love it, but what do you think of the villains in this first film?
Yeah, they're just...
Renee Belloc is the rival archaeologist who's working with the Nazis, and he's fine, but he's not especially threatening, you know?
Yeah.
The bad guy people really remember, dude
In the black suit.
the fedora with the leather trench coat. Toht is his name. T-O-H-T. Kind of creepy, isn't he?
Yeah.
As a kid, he always creeped me out, and I couldn't figure out why.
He has the medallion burn on his
Yeah,
hand.
he only has a few scenes. He's not really given a lot of development. So if there's really anything wrong with this movie, which I love, which I think is a great film, the villains could be maybe a little stronger. This is an action film.
Yeah.
And the action sequences in this movie are baller.
Oh, yeah, they're so cool.
Shootout in the bar towards the beginning of the movie. Lots of really nice use of shadow. The next movie is credited with creating the PG-13 rating, but this movie is pretty fucking violent too for a PG film. People getting shot in the head, and of course later there's an exploding head and a melting head. But what about the chase sequence for Cairo? Iconic moment where the sword spin, pulls out the sword, and then Indy just fucking shoots the guy, walks off, doesn't give a shit.
I love that scene.
You know the reason behind that sequence? Well, there was going to be a big sword fight. That's how it was scripted. Everybody got sick while they were making this movie, except for Spielberg. He didn't drink or eat the local food. Harrison Ford wasn't up to filming a big sword fight, so he said, Steven, why don't we just shoot the guy? And it's one of the most famous scenes in the movie. Clearly, history was on the side of Mr. Ford. There's that wonderful chase scene where Indy's trying to get into this truck. He gets thrown out the windshield, through the glass, dragged along the road, which is an awesome sequence.
Yeah.
Or the big fight scene with the giant, bald German mechanic.
Oh, yeah.
Where Indy's getting his ass kicked.
Until the
Propeller
decides.
Which is another violent moment in this movie.
Violent enough that, hey, that guy's dead.
It's comic book violence. It's not mean-spirited or anything.
Yeah.
Besides, he's an evil Nazi, so who cares?
Yeah, this violence isn't mean-spirited.
Shut up. Maybe the most famous scene in the movie, if it isn't the boulder, it's the very end, where the Nazis have procured the Ark of the Covenant, and they open it.
Ghosts come out of there and start, like, sucking the souls out of the Nazis.
Well, the ghosts look angelic at first, but then their faces turn into skulls.
Yeah.
And Indy yells at Marion to close her eyes, don't look at it, whatever you do, don't look. The Nazis then feel the face-melting wrath of God. The dude in the black trench coat, his face melts, it's like a candle. Fucking amazing. Is Raiders of the Lost Ark the only PG movie to feature an exploding head?
Did you look this up before the podcast?
I asked some other people, and nobody else could think of anything else. It has to be. Usually exploding heads do not appear in PG movies. Some people have pointed out that from a narrative perspective, it's a weak ending. It is almost literally a deus ex machina. Indy's tied up, somebody else comes along out of nowhere and saves his ass. The movie pastes over that by having it be fucking amazing, because you got people's heads melting and exploding, and lightning bolts shooting out of the ark and burning holes for people.
Yeah, pretty badass. It delivers what it promised.
Exactly, yeah. As a kid, you don't even notice that it's narratively a weak ending because the hero doesn't get himself out of the problem. We gotta talk about that music. John Williams' score. What magic pixie dust did John Williams have that allowed him to create 6 of the 10 most famous movie theme songs?
Which 6 are they?
Star Wars, Jaws, Superman, Indiana Jones, E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind. All of these are insanely iconic.
Yeah.
You have any last thoughts about Raiders before we move on?
It's fucking awesome.
It's a great movie. I love this film. It's probably the best of the series.
It's not my favorite, though.
If adventure has a name, it must be Indiana Jones. From Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
You don't believe me. You will, Dr. Jones.
When I was a kid, the next one was my favorite, which made it weird when I discovered later that for years and years, a lot of people thought Temple of Doom was the weakest film in the series.
Well, they're wrong, and I don't care about that.
I've always loved this movie. Watching it now, as an older person with slightly more sophisticated palate, perhaps, I get some of the complaints, but overall I still really, really like this movie. What's the plot of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom? This came out in 1984, by the way.
Well, I have a piece of trivia here.
Oh?
You probably know this. But I think this was part of the deal with Spielberg and Lucas. It ended up with E.T. being in Star Wars. What is the name of the bar that Indiana Jones escapes from in the beginning of the movie?
Don't know. What is the name of the bar?
It's Obi-Wan.
It's Obi-Wan. Oh, that's cool. Oh, I did not know that. Did you know this movie is a prequel? It's actually set the year before.
I did not know that.
Yeah, Raiders is set in 36. This is set in 35. So this is technically a prequel. People tend to overlook that. If you miss that date at the beginning of the movie, there's nothing else to indicate that it's a prequel. And he's in China. A deal goes wrong with a Chinese gangster. Him and his love interest and his sidekick end up going off of an airplane in the middle of India.
Oh god, I love Short Round.
And they stumble into this adventure where a local thuggy cult has stolen the sacred stone from this Indian village, and Indy goes and gets it, and some crazy shit happens. An important part of the adventure serial is the jungle adventure. And the first movie didn't have a lot of jungle stuff in it. The sequel picks up from that. The hidden temple with an evil cult in it is itself a trope of the adventure serials.
I'm still grasping to the reality that I knew something you didn't about a movie.
That may be one of the reasons why people didn't like this movie as much. It is true, there are some tonal inconsistencies in this film. It's darker than the first movie.
Probably the darkness in a lot of ways.
And yet it has more humor than Raiders.
Yeah, but I like that.
And for some reason it opens with a musical number.
The tonal imperfections, if you will, actually work to the movie's benefit. You have these periods of really drab sadness.
People getting their hearts ripped out and shit.
Then it has some levity in it, but the levity doesn't stop the plot from happening.
Yeah, but what about that musical number that opens the movie, though?
I like that musical number.
Well, it's Steven Spielberg getting his Bugsy Berkeley moment, because all the 70s movie nerds always say, I want to make a musical someday. And usually when they do that, like when Scorsese made New York, New York, or Coppola made One from the Heart, it ends up being a fiasco. So instead of doing a whole musical movie, Spielberg said, I'll sneak a musical into Indiana Jones too. Let's talk about Short Round.
I love Short Round.
Short Round is a divisive character. Some people hate him.
I don't want to know those people.
Some people say Short Round is racist, JD. That he is an unflattering Chinese stereotype.
Yeah, well, so were all Chinese characters in that time. I don't think he is racist, though.
The character is not written in a racist way, but some of his mannerisms could be interpreted as unflattering, perhaps.
Short Round was played by an Asian kid.
When I found out that Short Round was Vietnamese, what? You mean he's not really Chinese? That's blowing my mind here. Anyway, but the point is, I don't dislike Short Round. I love Short Round.
There's a lot of times where he helps progress the plot.
He does. He's not a lot of annoying kid sidekicks who need to be saved all the time.
Useful. He never would have gotten out of Obi-Wan done if
Short Round
hadn't driven the car with little bricks on his feet.
Right. Short Round does need rescued once when they're in the temple and he's getting attacked by the little Indian kid. Generally, he's helping Indy out, and I like that. And I like the actor, Jonathan K. Kwan, who was also in The Goonies.
Even when he needed to be rescued from the prince that was trying to kill him, he was giving that prince a run for his money.
Yeah, he was fighting back. What do you think of the love interest in this? So you said this is your favorite love interest.
Yeah, and reason being is because she is such a contrast to Indy. Like Marion, and there's nothing wrong with her, but she's like female Indiana.
And Willie Scott is very different than Marion Ravenwood.
Yeah, she is a damsel in distress, but she also fights back a little.
She spends much of the first half of the movie constantly shrieking about bats or monkeys' brains or snakes or bugs or elephants. She's afraid of all animals.
She makes me laugh.
I get the people who say that Willie Scott is annoying. I don't entirely dislike her either. Kate Capshaw is the actress. Her and Harrison Ford have a really good romantic chemistry. That scene where they're gonna make out, and he says something that pisses her off. That moment where they're both pacing in their rooms saying he/she isn't coming. They are both aghast that neither of them are gonna give in. And I don't dislike Willie Scott. She's not as cool as Marion, but I don't really have a problem with her. She doesn't ruin the movie. The violence is a little harder in this one.
Yeah.
The Thuggee death cult who are sacrificing people. A dude yanks another guy's heart out, then lowers him into a pool of lava where he is incinerated. That's kind of fucked up. Indy himself goes over to the dark side briefly, gets brainwashed by the blood of Calais, and he's turning on his friends, and he's gonna dip Willie in the lava, and he beats up Short Round. The villains have enslaved a bunch of children. A darker moment for sure. And we've already talked a lot about Mola Ram, and he is the best villain in the Indiana Jones series.
Oh, yeah.
Which is weird. What's his motivation as a character? Like,
he's just fucking shit up.
Yeah, exactly. There's one line, it's pretty brief, where he talks about the eventual goal of the Thuggee cult is to supplant all other major world religions through slavery and mind control. But it's not really important. He's just an evil dude. He's enslaving kids. He's brainwashing people. He's tearing hearts out. He's just a bad motherfucker.
He's a honey badger, and he don't get it.
That actor is very intense, very creepy.
He definitely gives 110% in this role.
The action sequences in this movie are up to snuff with those in the first.
Oh, yeah.
There's that really cool shootout. At one point, a gong is being rolled around.
Yeah.
And what about the moment where they jump in the inflatable raft and leap out of the airplane? Some people criticize that.
I think it's very Indiana.
Out of all the implausible shit that happens over these movies, that's what you get hung up on?
It's not even really implausible, even.
People can survive all sorts of crazy shit. The human body can be amazingly fragile and amazingly resilient. You just never know what's going to happen. That's a cool moment. Who gives a shit about the plausibility? It's cool to watch.
Did you get your money's worth out of the damn movie? Then what are you bitching about?
People nitpick. I do like the fight when the big Thuggee guy is trying to assassinate Indy in his hotel room.
What's cool about that sequence, the henchmen are blended into the background.
Yeah. If you want to talk about implausible, could a ceiling fan really support a dude that size? Point I'm making is...
it could barely support a gremlin.
Yeah. The big cult member who later gets crushed in the Rock Crusher is the same actor who played the bald mechanic in Raiders.
Really?
And I'm pretty sure he's in Last Crusade as well. He gets killed in every one of these movies. If the boulder is the action moment in Raiders that people really remember, the minecart chase is the moment in Temple of Doom that people really remember. And some of the effects don't look too hot by modern standards, but that scene fucking hauls ass, man. That shit is awesome. Carts flying off of the railing and into other shit. I love the cart chase. The climax where they're on the rope bridge is almost as good.
Yeah.
The rickety rope bridge, that's another hallmark of the Jungle Adventure serials. Talk about earlier how Indy makes it up as it goes along. He's cornered on both ends, there's bad guys on the bridge, and what does he do? He doesn't try to escape. He says, alright, fuck it, cuts the bridge. Prepare to meet Kali in hell!
Kali Ma, motherfucker, Kali Ma!
Even though the villains are sometimes not the most memorable in the series, they always get awesome death scenes.
Yeah.
It's hard to top the Ark of the Covenant melting people's faces. Mola Ram goes down pretty hard in this one. His hand burnt by the magic stone, falls off the cliff, has his head bashed into the cliff repeatedly on the way down, and then gets eaten by crocodiles.
Yeah, he died hard there.
It's pretty fucking brutal, man.
First two are definitely good movies.
Oh yeah, these are hallmarks of the action-adventure special effects genre. Temple of Doom was my favorite. It was the one I watched over and over again. Watching them now as adults, Raiders is probably a little better written.
Temple of Doom is the favorite.
Temple of Doom is still an awesome movie. People worked hard on it for a couple of years. Ever since Part 4 came out, people were saying, Temple of Doom isn't that bad.
Temple of Doom is my favorite. It has always been my favorite.
We're about to complete a great quest, the Holy Grail.
Indiana Jones is on the quest of a lifetime. But for some adventures, one Jones is not enough.
Dad?
Junior! Race across 3 continents to the homeland of the enemy.
Nazis. I hate these guys.
In his search for the Holy Grail.
The quest for the Grail is not archaeology. It's a race against evil.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Have the adventure of your life, keeping up with the Joneses.
The second half of this franchise is less certain. They made one in 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. The title made it evident this was going to be the last one, perhaps. I've got some qualms with the film. I don't think any of these movies are bad, but there are some decisions made in Last Crusade that I have some problems with. Now, this is set 2 years after Raiders. World War II is still going on. Walter Donovan, who becomes the villain of the film, informs Indy that his father has gone missing. Indiana Jones' father has always been obsessed with finding the Holy Grail. Eventually, he does find his dad, and they discover that the Nazis are also on the trail of the Holy Grail. In fact, they're very close to finding it. These three movies, they're about three of the world's major religions. The first movie has a MacGuffin from Judaism. The second movie is steeped in Hinduism, and this third movie is about Christianity. So when they made the fourth one, it really should have been about Islam. There are things I do like about the movie. I like that opening with the teenage Indiana Jones played by River Phoenix, even though a lot of it should be cutesy. Oh, this is how he got the hat, this is how he got the whip, this is how he got the fear of snakes. But I feel like it works pretty well. In fact, it might be my favorite action scene in the movie. That first act is cool, where he's looking for his dad.
Yeah.
The scene in the library has some cool stuff. There's that great moment where he says to his class, X never marks the spot. In this library, I believe it's in Venice.
And X marks the spot.
X marks the spot, yeah. That boat chase is cool, even though immediately after the boat chase, you find out that the guys chasing them are not Nazis. They're protectors of the Grail. They still killed those dudes. Oh well, collateral damage. It's a pretty good movie, and then Sean Connery shows up. Henry Jones Sr.
I don't like it. For starters, why is a very American Indiana Jones? Why is his father very
got
Scottish?
a Scottish accent? That's the Sean Connery school of acting, JD. He makes Indy look like an idiot over and over again.
Yeah.
He brings this humor into the movie that is really overdone. They're tied to a chair in a room that's been on fire. They've been captured by the Nazis, and they stumble into a fireplace. They then activate a secret passage in. It turns around, and there's this secret room where some Nazis are planning some evil shit. What about the airplane chase? The airplane crashes through the tunnel. Both its wings get torn off. As the plane is passing their vehicle, the pilot and the Joneses look at each other, and it's supposed to be this really goofy, funny moment, and overdoes it. It's too cartoony.
Yeah.
When Sean Connery kills that dude with the flock of seagulls, takes the humor too far. Connery doesn't give a bad performance or anything. He's doing his typical thing.
You could have taken him out of the movie, and it would have made the movie significantly better.
Some of the humor is overdone, and that's my big problem with Last Crusade.
Should have ended on a dark note, and Indy found his dad
clubbed to death by Nazis.
Well, I was going to say killed by the Holy Grail.
In the first film, there was this contrast between the Hebrew Ark of the Covenant and the Nazis. Oh, that's some potentially powerful themes there. And in this movie, I don't know if you noticed, JD, but it's really about the reconciliation between Indy and his dad. Meanwhile, they're searching for the cup of another famous son who had a contentious relationship with his father. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's okay screenwriting, but it doesn't work for me as well. What do you think of the girl in this one? Elsa is the character.
I don't like her.
Do you know the actress's name? Alison Doody. Doody.
She's a duty.
She's okay. She's not really as memorable as the first two.
I don't like her because she's an evil Nazi.
Well, she's a Nazi bitch, yeah. She is a traitor.
Although Indy wrecked that shit. Wrecked that shit so hard she contemplated leaving the Nazis.
That's
but
right.
Indy didn't want none. He was like, talk to him, bitch, you're a Nazi.
There was this thought that this would probably be the last one, at least for a while. They did make sure to bring back Salah and Marcus Brody. Denhelm Elliott and John Rhys Davies are back. I feel like Marcus Brody wasn't that stupid in Raiders. They made him a clown in this one. Talk about how he got lost in his own museum. Where'd that come from? Why is he a goofball now? It's just another reason the comedy in this movie sits not comfortably with me. But what about those wacky Nazis?
I don't know what about them.
There's a scene in this movie I do like where Indy and his dad are undercover at a Nazi ceremony where they're burning a bunch of books, and he stumbles into De Fuhrer.
Oh, yeah, that's stupid.
You don't like that moment? I think that moment's cute where he comes face to face with Hitler himself, and he takes the journal out of Indy's hand and autographs it and hands it back to him. But there is a Zeppelin sequence in this movie. Do you remember the Zeppelin?
No.
I'd forgotten about it too. It's not really important. Spielberg said, this is a World War II movie, gotta get a Zeppelin in there somewhere. And do you remember the villain in this one? Walter Donovan, as played by Julian Glover, who I think is related to Danny. Who's this dude?
Should have Christoph Waltz play him.
I don't know what Christoph Waltz was up to. I don't think he wants to get pigeonholed as the Nazi guy. And speaking of Hitler, we looked up the actor who plays Hitler in this movie.
Because we're like, he looks familiar.
And this dude has made a career out of playing Hitler. He's played Hitler in 3 or 4 things, and he's played Himmler in a couple of things. He's British, but somehow he's made a career out of playing Nazis. The villain in this one's not all that memorable. There is some cool action. The motorcycle chase is good. Henry Sr.'s in the sidecar, and they toss a flagpole into the spokes of a motorcycle, and it causes the motorcycle to shoot up in the air. The fight on the tank is pretty cool. This movie does have an awesome last act. When they finally get to the temple, and there are all these traps that Indy has to navigate.
Yeah.
That shit is cool. Do you remember what the 3 obstacles are, JD?
Can't remember now.
There's the first one where you have to bow before God, and that's when when the saw blades come out of the wall.
Yeah.
The second one is the name of God, where Indy has to jump over the giant Scrabble board. Third test is the Walk of Faith. There's this bridge in this gulf, but it's been painted to look like the wall, so at first you don't even see it.
Right.
And that shit's cool. I love the knight that's been hanging out.
Been Netflixing and chilling.
Yeah, he's been hanging out for 1,936 years.
100 years will give you such a crick in the neck.
I do love that reveal. Bad guy drinks from what he thinks is the Holy Grail, but it's not. And what happens then? He ages instantly. The real cup of Christ would be the simple wooden cup of a carpenter. Which
right,
is,
because Jesus was a poor man.
So he wouldn't have a gold, bejeweled cup. The big father-son reconciliation moment is at the end. Elsa tries to take the Holy Grail across the lip of the temple, and it causes a collapse. He falls into a crevasse in the ground, reaching for the Grail. Indy's dangling over this giant crack in the ground, and he's reaching for Grail, and his dad says to him, let it go. Oh, his father's no longer a prick.
He's always a prick.
Now,
which one of these movies, I think it was this one, wasn't it, that had the train sequence? The circus train, and it had the...
yeah, that's at the beginning. Yeah, that's when he's a teenager.
Yeah, you never mentioned it.
We were talking about it earlier.
No, we weren't.
Talking about the opening scene where he's a teenager. We talked about that.
Well, we talked about being a teenager, but we never talked about the train sequence.
There's a circus train where there's a rhino and a lion and a pit of snakes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's why he's afraid of snakes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. That's how
you said it sets up, you didn't say how. You fucked up, Zach, is what I'm trying to tell you.
The reason he has this phobia of snakes...
Mr. Bangers, you fucked up.
I fucked up. Okay, sure. There's another reveal at the end. It does not say on his birth certificate Indiana Jones.
It says Henry Jones II.
Henry Jones Jr. And Indiana was the name of...
the state?
The dog.
Oh, yeah.
You see it in the opening scene when Indy walks into the house. You see this Alaskan Malamute. This is a big in-joke. George Lucas named the character after his dog, which was an Alaskan Malamute, named Indiana. The same dog that inspired Chewbacca. So there you go.
Legend says that a crystal skull was stolen from a mythical lost city in the Amazon. Supposedly built out of solid gold, guarded by the living dead. Whoever returns the skull to the city temple will be given control over its power.
For years and years, that was the end of the story. That was the conclusion of the trilogy. It's called The fucking Last Crusade. It ends with Indy and his dad riding off into the sunset. Story's over, right?
Right.
Despite that, right after that movie came out and was another big, huge success, people started saying, when's part 4? Apparently the reason it took so long to make a 4th Indiana Jones movie is because nobody could really agree on a script. George Lucas's idea was, this one's going to be set in the 50s. Instead of being a reference to adventure serials from the 30s and 40s, it'll be a reference to 50s sci-fi. So there's going to be aliens in this one. Both Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford hated that idea.
They're still not aliens. Cross-dimensional beings.
That was the compromise. This movie finally came out in 2008. On paper, setting an Indiana Jones movie in the 50s isn't a bad idea. And obviously, he's going to age into that. In real time, it's been 20 years, so it makes sense to move the timeline forward. I have some qualms about the whole 1950s setting. It doesn't really play it up. He's fighting communists instead of Nazis this time. A scene early on, Indy gets detained by his own government. Get a taste of that Cold War paranoia. But in a lot of ways, this is the same kind of story as the first 3, with communists instead of Nazis. There are certain specific elements of the sci-fi aspect that people take umbrage with. The fridge nuking.
Was that what I wanted in my Indiana Jones movie? No, but did it offend me to the point that I was going to lose sleep and bitch about it on the internet for 20 years? No.
I wouldn't say it offended me to the point where I was losing sleep, but it did take me out of the movie. There's a difference between jumping out of an airplane in an inflatable raft and surviving that, and some of the other insane shit Indiana Jones has survived, and him surviving getting a nuclear bomb dropped on him, and escaping it by climbing inside of a lead-lined refrigerator. Come on, George. Come on, Steve. Now, an important question. By 2008, was Harrison Ford too old for this shit?
Yes.
According to Steven Spielberg, Ford did most of his own stunts in this movie. I don't know if that's true or not.
It's too obvious.
Definitely seems like Indiana Jones is CGI in a couple of scenes. I think Steven Spielberg is blowing smoke up our asses. Acting-wise, Harrison Ford is fine. It's always seemed to me that Harrison Ford hated Han Solo, but he loves Indiana Jones. There are a couple of scenes where Indy should have a broken hip.
Yeah.
Another highly contested element of this movie that people hate, the character of Mutt Williams.
The beef.
Played by Shia LaBeouf. From the moment we see him, oh, well, this is his son, right? And it isn't until about halfway through the movie where that's officially revealed. People hate this character. They hate Mutt.
I don't like him either, but I don't hate him.
Last time we were talking about this, you said he's the least of this movie's problems.
Exactly.
And I totally agree with that. Shia LaBeouf, he gets shit on. His antics recently have been bizarre. He's okay. He's not a terrible actor. He's alright. right in the part. I don't really have any strong feelings about him. Make him a 50s greaser Marlon Brando type is fine. I'm very neutral on this character. One of my big problems with it is not so much that Indiana Jones gets a son, it's that he gets a whole ensemble. Previously, it was always 3 characters, and the first one was Indy, Marion, and Sallah for most of the movie. In part 2, it was Indy, Willie, and Short Round. And 3 was Indy as dad, and then Sallah or Marcus Brody. It was always 3 characters. And in this one, for some reason, they have 5 major characters. The John Hurt as Ox and Ray Winstone as Mac.
John Hurt's character could have been completely removed from the movie, and it would have made any difference.
I agree with you. Up until the very end, he's crazy. He's babbling nonsensically. He doesn't really contribute a lot. And I don't think Ray Winstone's character really adds that much either. He's a triple agent. He keeps changing alliances. First he's working with Indy, then he's working with the commies, then he's back again. Did we need this extra character?
No.
I don't know why they made the decision to bloat the cast that way. It does drag the movie down. What do you think about the decision to bring back Karen Allen as Marion Ravenwood, as Indiana Jones' true love, as the mother of his child?
I kind of like that. It was a cute partnership, but they don't have the same chemistry that they had in the first movie.
It's about a character for Indy to say, Marion, you're the only one for me, babe. Indy's not exactly a womanizer, but he seems to disregard women pretty easily. Bringing Karen Allen back is fine. Their chemistry's okay. If you're going to bring the franchise full circle, it makes sense to bring back an older character like that. One of the things I do like about this one is the villain.
Yeah, I love Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett as Irana Spoko.
Yeah, I want to spoke you.
She's kind of hot in this, isn't she?
Yeah.
The short black hair and the tight pants.
I mean, this is after Lord of the Rings, but...
She still looks pretty good. She's certainly striking. She's fascinated with literal psychic warfare. She wants to learn the secrets of the mind. I guess we should talk about the MacGuffin in this movie, which is the crystal skulls, which are real things that exist. They're not made from aliens. They're made by people. They're sculpted from glass, from crystal, by human hands. But there is a lot of chicanery and mythology around the real crystal skulls. In the movie, they're fucking aliens.
In the movie, they mentioned that this particular crystal skull is a real crystal skull, and all the other ones are fakes and fabrications.
The skull is from the corpse of the alien that crashed in Roswell. They're keeping in Area 51. The opening sequence is set in the secret bunker where they keep the Ark of the Covenant. I refer to it as CGI tomfoolery. There's a
lot of CGI and green screen, and
it's all bad.
Bunch of George Lucas bullshit that...
You can't help but compare it to the overuse of CGI in the Star Wars prequels, right?
Oh my god, I know. Man, there's no way that you can hide that shit these days without people knowing it.
There are some moments that take you out of the movie. The fridge nuking's one of them. Another one is when Shia LaBeouf gets tossed up in the treetops and he sees some monkeys swinging on vines and he says,
hey, I can do that.
Why is there a random Tarzan moment in this movie?
Yeah.
Or that giant machine the commies have with the giant CGI saw blades on the front. It's overdone. It's not realistic. And I know nothing about these movies are realistic, but those specific moments take us out of the fantasy.
Yeah.
Like I said, I do not hate Crystal Skulls. There's some stuff I do like about this movie. Some of the action sequences are pretty cool. The opening chase scene through Area 51 is not bad. The fight on the rocket sled I like. The inevitable motorcycle chase through the college on Shia LaBeouf's motorcycle, that's cool. When they're in the tomb in Peru, there are dudes that are dressed as skeletons that are jumping around.
That's pretty cool.
That's cool, and I like the fire ants.
Yeah.
How about the aliens?
The only thing I can say is if you want to put a vague religious damper on this would be in reference to the paganism of the Aztecs.
It's the chariot of the gods theory. All the ancient civilizations were founded by aliens. In the first 3 movies, each of the MacGuffins correspond to some major world religion, and it doesn't in this one. I don't feel it does. But the aliens, not as if Indiana Jones is punching E.T. in the face. So that would have been cool. I don't outright hate them, but is it a thing that belonged in an Indiana Jones movie?
No, it makes it too unreal.
Even
in Temple of Doom, I know the guy is magically ripping hearts out of chests and stuff.
It works in the context of that movie.
Yeah, they still don't stretch it that far beyond belief.
Maybe the aliens push it a little too far. It changes the context of the things that came before. The thing that really just rubs me the wrongest way. Rubs me raw, man. And it's not even the fridge nuking or Shia LaBeouf swinging like Tarzan. I don't like that stuff. But the thing I really hate is at the end, when Indy and Marion get married, and his fedora blows off his head, hits Shia LaBeouf's shoe, and he picks it up, puts on the fedora. No! Do not end this movie with Indiana Jones Jr. will return. And I know Harrison Ford takes the hat off his head and says, not yet, kid, or something like that. But I still hate it. I hate it. I don't even hate the character. I don't hate the idea. I hate that moment. Wish if they were going to do that wedding, they would have brought back Sallah and Short Round. And apparently they were going to, but there were some scheduling issues. To which I say, if fucking Steven Spielberg wants you to clear your fucking schedule, it's definitely a film I have a lot of complex emotions about. And I think we both do.
Yeah.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is probably the weakest. Though I have problems with Last Crusade, it's overall a more satisfying film than this one. And what's most frustrating is if they had just changed a couple of things, cut out some of the gratuitous CGI, changed some of the stunts to be a little more grounded, it probably would have been a pretty good movie.
Here we go now, really slow. Nearly limping, cause he's old.
This is breaking news. Harrison Ford trades in his whip for a walker.
Disney bought Lucasfilms. There were some issues with Paramount, who distributed the first 3 movies, but now Disney owns Indiana Jones wholesale. For a while there were rumors they're going to reboot it with a new actor. Steven Spielberg said, they're not making Indiana Jones 5 without me and without Harrison. It has now been announced. I believe it's on the schedule for 2019. Harrison Ford was kind of too old in the last one, and now he's 10 years older. What do you think about the prospects of an Indiana Jones 5 in 2019 with a 76-year-old Harrison Ford?
Okay, so then 10 years later...
Indiana Jones should be fighting hippies, because it'll be in the 60s.
Right. Indiana Jones up in smoke.
Indiana Jones in the search for the golden bong. Spielberg has said some things about Crystal Skull. He's a pretty self-aware guy. Harrison Ford's going to be hella old. I think it might get kind of ridiculous. Is Shia LaBeouf going to come back?
They just passed it on the short round.
Well, that I would be okay with, but I don't think that would happen. The idea is they want to reboot it with a younger actor. But because Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford are pretty powerful people, they have to placate them and fulfill the request of one more adventure. And then afterwards, they will probably reboot it with a younger new actor in the part. What should the MacGuffin be in Part 5?
Ooh, Gandalf's staff.
It should continue the theme of the first 3 and tie into a major world religion. Maybe have Indy hunting down Buddha's girdle.
What other, like Shinto?
That could be cool. Some of the Japanese mythology is interesting. They could pull from that in a cool way.
Golden Horn of the Water Dragon. Or...
Indiana Jones and the Tears of the Dragon. I don't know.
I would see a movie.
I would see that movie, yeah. There were rumors that Part 4 was going to be about Atlantis. There were rumors that Part 4 was going to be about the Fountain of Youth. These are things they could draw from that might be interesting.
My name is Henry Jones, but my friends call me Indy. For more than 90 years, I've lived the adventures of a lifetime. It all began in 1908 when my mother and I joined my father on his lecture tour around the world. Although we didn't see eye to eye on everything, we did have the most amazing journeys together. By the time I was 16, my quest for adventure had only grown stronger. I've had many great adventures, met a lot of amazing people, visited hundreds of fascinating places, and lived a life beyond imagination. All before the age of 21.
Like Star Wars, an expanded universe for Indiana Jones. It's not as big, but there is some stuff. There was a TV show, The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and this ran from 1992 to 1993. George Lucas just can't leave shit well enough alone. Frustrating thing about trying to watch The Young Indiana Jones Chronicles now, those original TV episodes are not available. When the series was released on home video back in the 90s, they didn't release the TV episodes as they aired. George Lucas would edit 2 episodes together into a 90-minute movie, and that's the version that got released on DVD. So you can't go back and watch the show as it aired. Because apparently the series had this framing device of an 80-year-old wheelchair-bound Indiana Jones telling his grandchildren his stories from his youth. That was cut out of the video release. From my understanding, there were basically 2 types of stories on the Young Indiana Jones adventures. There was him when he was a really little kid. These episodes focused very much on an educational aspect. It was about exploring other cultures. There were episodes when he was older in World War I, and that version of Indiana Jones was played by a young Sean Patrick Flannery. All the episodes I watched, Indiana Jones was a little kid. Those episodes were incredibly boring. They were so dry. Felt like a bad Disney Channel show.
Yeah.
I didn't watch any of the other episodes where he's a little older, and maybe they're better. There are comic books. I know Dark Horse published a lot of Indiana Jones comic books back in the day. There was one where Indiana Jones was looking for Bigfoot, and while exploring the American Southwest, he found a fossilized Millennium Falcon, with the obvious illusion being that Bigfoot is Chewbacca.
Ah, okay.
There was one Indiana Jones comic book where he was fighting dinosaurs, where they found a lost world. Did you ever play any of the Indiana Jones video games? It was a pretty good one for the Super Nintendo. And there was one I played on the PC as a kid. Do not remember the name of. There's a stunt show at Disney World that I've never seen. You've never seen. But it's out there. It exists. That's that franchise. As I said, those first 2 movies, great. Love them. Second 2 movies, yeah, they're still pretty good, I guess. Does it feel good to be back on the podcast, JD, after taking a break?
Oh, so much. So
I'm detecting a hint of sarcasm.
Just a hint, really?
If you want to send us a secret object from some ancient religion, you may do so at bangersandmash88@yahoo.com. That's the word bangers, the letter N, it's the word mash, the number 88@yahoo.com. We have our Facebook group, www.facebook.com/thebangersandmashow. Did you see that Tony liked an old episode? He liked the Invasions of the Body Snatchers episode we did back in March or April. Thanks, Tony, and thanks to all our listeners everywhere. And I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to whip my way out of here. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to carefully remove the microphone from the microphone stand and hope that it doesn't cause a boulder to come rolling at me. No? All right, well, fine, whatever then.